Welcome to the Murali End. My name's Mark Machado. I'm joined by Estelle Vice Devon in Colombo and Dominic Machado in Boston. We are live. If you haven't come across us before, we talk about Sri Lankan cricket. Hit the follow, hit the like, join our WhatsApp channel, subscribe to our Substack, help us grow, join the community, leave your questions, leave your comments. We're gonna discuss the T20 squad. I'm so excited about it because this is what I've dubbed the Road to Ahmedabad, but of course, the World Cup final is potentially going to be in India, which means that it could even be the road back to Colombo for some of these players, because the World Cup is due. Like the Women's World Cup, it's going to be in India and Sri Lanka. So this is what I reckon, Estelle. It's the beginning of the journey for our men's T20 side to the World Cup. There's, I think, things that need to be discussed in it. It's been a long time since we last played international T20 matches. It was way back in early Jan when we were playing New Zealand. Mm-hmm. And since then, there has been a few changes. Estelle, I'll come to you first because me and Dominic have blathered on a lot on Murali End recently, and we've missed you. What was your initial thoughts when you saw the squad?
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty decent squad. I know there were a lot of rumors floating around about Chanaka and Chamika Karunaratne coming back into the squad, right? So that's kind of come to fruition. So not too many surprises, I should say. Just looking at it as a whole, it looks like pretty much the players that you would expect are in the side. It'd be interesting to see, as you said, like it's kind of the start to that preparation for the World Cup next year, right? So how things go and how the tactics are in particularly with them bringing the likes of Karunaratne and Shanaka. How do they use those players? Are they going to be on the bench? What's going to happen? Chandimal, another name in the squad who potentially are looking at staying on until the World Cup, because you wouldn't usually bring in an experienced player like that if you're just gonna sit him on the bench. But I mean, weirder things have happened. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty balanced squad named by Sri Lanka.
I'll just pick you up on the Chandimal thing. So I reckon he's been in the squad fairly consistently now for a long time, right, Dom?
I would say about 8 months. I think one of the later series last year. So basically, post World Cup 2024, he's been in the side. Now, I think the tricky thing with Chandimal, his T20I record is famously poor, right? He strikes just above 100. Has had some limited success as an opener. Obviously, there's not a spot for him there. But I think one thing we need to pay attention to with the Chandimal inclusion is that he's sort of reinvented himself as a lower order batter in T20 cricket. We've seen this in the LPL. We've seen this as well in the PSL this year, where he came in, took Kusal Mendes' place, and hit a couple of blistering knocks. So he's actually been in fairly good T20 form. Whether they have him in as the backup keeper, because I don't think they'd go with KJP if something did happen to Kusal. But I wonder if we might not see Chandi actually in the 11, because I think there's a lot of spots decided, but there are a couple openings. And once again, I remember listening to Mark and Estelle talking about the number 4 position in the 2022 World Cup. That still hasn't quite been solved. So I think that's going to be a question that we kind of have to look at and think about.
Also, I think there's a domestic competition going on, right? The major club limited overs tournament, and Chandimal's just made like 120 of 80 something deliveries in one of the. It's a 50 over tournament, of course, but 120 of like a 80 something delivery innings. So he is coming in with a little bit of form behind him.
Yeah, let's quickly go through the squad, because I think we also at some point need to discuss the players who aren't there as well. So obviously captain Chartha Sri Lanka, he's joined by Pathum Nissanka, Kusal Mendes, Chandimal, Kusal Pereira, Kamindu Mendes, Avishka Fernando, Dasan Shanaka, Dinith Walalage, Wanindu Hasaranga, Mahesh Dikshana, Jeffrey Randasay, Charmika Karunaratne, Matisha Patharana, Nuwin Thishra, Benura Fernando, and Ishan Malinga. One of the names that is also missing, who was in the last squad, and I had to check, I had to make sure I wasn't kind of having false memories of it, is Bhanuka Rajapaksa. It's so what I find surprising, right, is the players we are discussing either coming in or out the squad. So you're talking now, it's Barnaker, Chandy, Dustin Sharnaker, Charmaker. These are kind of senior players, right? Mm-hmm. These are players who we know what they're all about, and we know what they deliver. I find it fascinating, Estelle, that kind of 9 months. Yeah, we're about 9 months away from the World Cup. They are still the brains center, the Sanath Jayasuriya, Uputharanga, and I'm not just naming shrunken openers. These are our selectors. They are unclear about which senior players they want in the squad, and I think that is quite odd.
Mm.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, right? Because it seems like players like Bhanuka come in for one series, then they're missing for a while, then they come back in. So I'd be interested to see what the thinking behind is. He has just signed for the Hobart Hurricanes, hasn't he?
Yeah.
For the Big Bash. So possibly, I don't know, an indication that maybe he's looking outward now and not really too concerned about, or maybe the communication has been made to him that they're not really looking at him at the moment. But Bhanuka's that kind of interesting one, right? Like, because everybody knows the ability he has. And he did have a really good start to his career, but then there were so many other issues that came up. And does he fit into the side? I think that is the biggest concern. Particularly, I think buying into the fielding and that side of things as well, because in professional cricket right now, like, you can't afford to have bad fielders, right?
Yeah.
Because games are turned on their head with fielding efforts. So I don't know, he's always a topic of conversation, right? I feel like every time there is a squad named, and if he's named or if he's not named, he's always part of the conversation, because it's almost like you're torn between, okay, we know he can be this real powerhouse, but also at the same time, what is he actually offering?
I'll just add too, I think the other interesting bit to this is that both Chamika and Shanaka have performed recently. So I think Chamika was the player of the recently completed T20 tournament in Sri Lanka. Batted well, bowled well, and again, to get to Estelle's point, the margin you get from going from Bhanuka to Chamika in the field is absolutely massive. Same thing with Dasan. He was instrumental in the ILT20 championship for the Dubai Capitals, and then spent the IPL training with the Capitals as well. With Gujarat. We all thought he was going to the Capitals. Sorry, with Gujarat.
I think he was. I think he was a kind of net player with the Capitals at one point, because there was definitely photos and videos of him partaking in it. So yeah.
But eventually found a home with Gujarat. So those are two guys who are highly valued and have played well. I think the other interesting point Estelle brings up is, and Mark brings up too, is the youth. So there's some younger players who I'm a bit surprised have missed out. Benura versus Dilshan Madhushanka. We've yet to see Dilshan Madhushanka put on the international clothes since that big A tour that he had. And as we know, Benura's fitness is always something in doubt, because he'll play well and then he'll get injured. And we love Bhanura, but would you carry a Dilshan Madhushanka 9 months out, right? Someone who you can sort of see what you can get from him, who's a potential match winner. Bhanura, we know he's a good player, but with Madhushanka, we kind of get that X factor. So that's one of the things that I'm thinking about. Another guy, as well as Chamika Wickramasinghe, Chamindu Wickramasinghe. Sorry, Chamika and Chamindu, I'm getting confused. Chamindu Wickramasinghe, who was emerging player of the last LPL, who has tons and tons of talent, who can kind of play that role that Dasun Shanaka and Chamaka Karunaratne play. So 9 months out, these are the guys you might be wanting to get a shot and kind of look at closer, because 4 months out from the tournament, these are not players that you want to be able to say, hey, let's see what they can do. You want to have a settled 11 by then.
Yeah, I think that's what surprises me about it. There's a couple of good comments and questions coming. Please, if you're watching live, send us your comments and questions. We'll try and get to them. If you're watching this on Facebook, or if you're on Facebook, on YouTube, or you're listening in one of the podcast apps, leave us your comments, because we do go back and look at them. And you know, this whole thing is about creating a conversation, right? We're just, at the end of the day, we're just enthusiastic fans who want to talk about Sri Lankan cricket all the time. There's a couple of good comments come through. We'll go to Hello's comment first. Sorry, Hello, I don't know if that's your actual first name or not. It could be, who knows. He or she or they say, I'm not confident about Chamaka's inclusion, especially when we have a good seam depth. I think that's a really interesting comment, but I think this, though, from Deekshana is actually a kind of more important pressing comment. Deekshana Praveen, not the player, has asked best starting 11 for game 1 in Pallekele. Because sometimes I look at this squad and I go, look, there's 17 players in the squad. How many of the fringe players that we will spend time discussing about are fringe players and actually won't get anywhere near it? Because I look at it and I think there's about 7 or 8 places already in this 11 that is totally nailed down, and there's only like 2 or 3 that we're kind of fighting for here, right? So you know who the openers are going to be. They're going to be Pathum and Kusal Mendes. You know that Deekshana and Hasaranga, I'd say, are those are the top 4 that we know are going to play. Aslanka's captain, so we know he's going to play as well. So that's 5 spots taken up. You like Kamindu Mendes is our kind of form player at the moment, so he's definitely going to play. And I think it's fair to say
you think he's definitely going to play. You think Kamindu is definitely going to play?
Yeah, I'd say also off the back of the strength of his of his IPL, he's almost definitely going to play as well, right? So that's kind of 6 players in.
And I would think Kusal Pereira is probably definitely
Pereira
to play. Yeah, KJP, I would say, yeah.
Yeah, KJP is definitely going to play. So that's 7 players off their 11. And then you're like, right, they're going to pick probably Matisha Patharana, because he's kind of widely considered our best kind of seaming prospect in this format. And then you're like, right, there's probably one off Ishan Malinga, Bhanuka, or Nuwan Thushara. I wouldn't be surprised if it was Thushara who got the nod of it. And then you're like, right, there's kind of 2 more spots where you're like, are they going to go with an all-rounder? Are they going to go, you know, a seaming all-rounder, a spinning all-rounder? They're going to go with someone like Dasun Shanaka, who kind of do a little bit of everything. So you're like, we're kind of discussing the kind of edge of it. And you could listen to our show so far and go, right, Sri Lanka seems to be in a bit of disarray. They don't really know who their 11 is going to be. But I would argue, actually, we probably know about 9 for our 11. And it's kind of 2 spots. And actually, that's why that comment about who is the 11 going to be is, I think, quite pertinent. I don't know if you think I've totally got that wrong there, Estelle.
No, I think you're right. More or less, those are kind of players who've got their positions nailed down. I mean, as much as you can in T20 cricket and for Sri Lanka, right? Particularly, I think if you look at the batting, you have those names that basically are going, you are assured that they will be playing. From the bowling front, I suppose there might be a bit of rotation. I wonder if someone like Binura Fernando will be brought in for variety. Unfortunately, like, you know, the likes of Van der Sar, it doesn't look like he'll get an opportunity unless there's an injury to one. So those are like kind of players who they're in the squad and you know they're unlikely to play, or, you know, people who you basically know are going to play. So it is those couple of positions, as you said. It's also important. It's an important question as to whether it's a spin bowling or seam bowling all-rounder they will be looking for, and the type of role they would want that bowler to play as well. Because, I mean, if you're playing Matisha Patharana and say you're playing a Nuwan Tushar. Probably you might need someone who can offer a couple of overs in the death, or whether they want to use Mahesh Theekshana in those situations. Also, we can see what the thinking is there, right? But like, I'd be really interested to see who that middle order is going to be, the lower middle order, because that's where games can be turned, right? And we saw that in the second ODI as well, where if you had a couple of guys who could actually clear the boundary and stay along, stick around, maybe the result would have been different. So I think that when you bring a player like Shanaka or you bring a player like Chamika into the squad, you kind of have to play them, because you're bringing them in because they're coming in form, and they are people who you already know what they can do, right? So
Yeah, but Esli, this is Sri Lanka, right? I mean,
we thought Akila Dhananjaya was going to play in the test, remember?
They bring in Akila Dhananjaya into various squads he never plays, right? I mean, his name's not even on the list, but don't be surprised if Asita Fernando just starts turning up.
Right, or Chamira, right, wasn't included in the squad, and then all of a sudden he's ahead of... Yeah, Estelle, I think I agree with you. Like, the logical team selection bit is you bring those guys in to play them. And I think you're right about the lower middle order. I think there are 4 batters who are definitely in, and that's Pathum, Kusal Mendes, KJP, and Asalanka. The question is, what have they brought Chamika and Dawson in for? Is it for power hitting? Is it for all-round ability? What are you going to do with Wani, right? So is Wanindu in the plans as a spin basher? Avishka Fernando, is he someone that they're thinking of in that number 4 spot? Because they've talked about that endlessly, the fact that he does better when the field is spread out. What role does Kamindu play? Can he do what Sri Lanka need him to do? Do they feel confident enough in his bowling to give him a spot in the top 4? And then that strategic aspect. You've got great players, but you don't have... The role clarity is a little bit more difficult because you have someone like Deekshana who does, I think, his best work in the power play. You do want him to be bowling at least an over or 2 up front, but you also need a seamer to come in and do that. You need 2 seamers to kind of operate in the power play. You have Mathisha Patarana, who is going to be banked for the death, and we think about that time and again, and he's really good at that. But that, again, creates questions about what happens in the middle overs. Hasaranga is going to take some of those middle overs. Patirana is going to take some of those middle overs. Where do you fit in that 5th bowler? What kind of conditions are they going to be playing with? Are they going to try to sneak, as many bowling options as possible into this squad, where you play sort of someone like Wilalage up the order? So there are tons of options. I think the unsettling thing about this is that even though we know quite well what the skill sets of these players are, we don't quite know how the pieces fit together, particularly in that lower middle order, particularly as it comes to filling in those overs that we need.
For me, I'm just going to say it. Weller should be in this side, right? He should be in every, regardless of the pitch, regardless of where we're playing. I just think he adds so much to it. I kind of agree with you, Estelle. I think Dustin Shanaka has been unbelievable in form in recent kind of months, and I think because of that, he should be in there. I think it's an exciting time. I think for me the big question mark over on this side isn't the bowling. I think there's more than enough there. There's a lot we can mention 6 or 7 players that should be in this squad that aren't anywhere near it at the moment in terms of seam bowling and turning the ball. It's who is gonna finish an innings for us, who is gonna get those, add 30 or 40 runs in the last 3 or 4 overs of an innings. Are we able to do that consistently? Because I think if we are, then we become quite a serious side. And I think at the moment, it's slightly worrying from a fan perspective that no one's put their hand up and said definitively they're the finisher, right? Because we can talk about Bhanuka, we can talk about Dustin, we can talk about Chamika, we can go, right, those guys have had a shot and they've done it sometimes, but more often than they haven't done it consistently, right? So I think that's the question. It's exciting though, isn't it? I mean, like, when have we ever had this much strength in depth? Like, I know that there's been squads which have had a lot more talent in it and have been a lot better, but we've never had this kind of level of actual headaches around team selections, right, Dom?
Yeah, and I kind of want to tie this into Deekshana's point here. I actually think in terms of talent and in terms of game awareness, this is one of our better formats. We're ranked worst out of the three, but that I think has to do with how often we play. It has to do with kind of the backlog of bad results we had coming up to 2022. I think that we can be very competitive. And to me, if I had to say what kind of player do I really want, I want someone who can rip the top order apart. I think that is so important for this side and so important for winning T20 matches. Having someone who can come in and just get the party started early on, put the pressure on the other side, take out their best players. So that for me, who is going to be the leader of the bowling pack at the top of the innings is going to be the big question for me, because we know Patirana's quality at the death, but as we saw with CSK, if he comes in and the game's already been decided, you neuter his power, right? Well, Hasaranga, again, great bowler, but they're 90 for none after 6 overs. You come in and you neuter Hasaranga. So finding that person who's going to be incisive in those early overs, and that's where someone like Dilshan Madhushanka has so much appeal, because we know he has it in him to do that.
So I just think that there's something going on there in terms of they've seen something with his either his fitness or he's kind of lost his rhythm a little bit, where we're kind of seeing him at the fringes of squads in and around SLC, but not playing. And I think there must be a reason for that, because his skill set is so unique to the rest of our squad. I think there must be something else going on there, Dom. I think that's why we're not seeing him. Hopefully, they're doing that thing that only ever I think only ever Sri Lanka do, where they kind of get a player and they're trying to teach them a new skill or remodel their action or something like that. Then they unleash them just before the World Cup or at a World Cup, and suddenly they're picking up wickets all over the place. Maybe that is the kind of idea. I don't know, Russell. You've been in the press box for some of the Bangladesh games. Have you heard anything about where exactly Dilshan Madhushanka has gone?
No, it's a weird thing, right? Because he was this superstar that emerged in that 2023 World Cup, and then all of a sudden he's not really one of the first names that you're thinking about playing, which is interesting to me, because you would think, yeah, when he's injured he's out obviously, but once he's fit you'd want to get him into sides as quickly as possible. So I'm not really sure what the thinking there is. He is in the ODI team, isn't he? He's in the ODI squad, but hasn't played any games yet. Maybe he'll feature in the third game. Just to go back on the type of player that we want. Actually, to me, I think, and I think Upul Taranga mentioned this as well when some time ago when the question about Dasun Shanaka was raised. He does have a unique set of skills, right? It's just that he hasn't been able to deliver in that last period where he was representing Sri Lanka. So I think that is one area that Sri Lanka really need a player. You need like a Heinrich Klaasen type player, right, in this side. And you don't, like, those aren't the types of players that just appear everywhere. Either you have it or you don't, and that's why you see players like Bhanuka and Dasun getting more and more opportunities than sometimes you wouldn't see a different player getting, is because their ability is uncommon, right? That you don't get a lot of Sri Lankans who can play like them. So I would say that's kind of the big lack, because if I look at the bowling attack, like Mark mentioned, there's an incredible amount of depth right now, right?
Yeah, should we do some of the questions and comments that have come in? We referenced Deekshana Praveen. I'm going to have to start calling you Praveen, because people are going to be thinking Mahesh Deekshana is like
who knows,
sitting on the line. It could be, but if it is, then maybe he doesn't want to reveal himself, right? Deekshana Praveen wrote earlier, T20 is our worst format, right? Why is that? What kind of players are we really missing the most? That's the kind of question we've been answering the last few, not the question, the kind of questioning. That is the question we've been answering the last few moments. Charmith has written, Bhanuka's fitness might have been a reason for him losing the place. I definitely, like, for me, and I've said this before, me and Estelle and we've been talking about Sri Lankan cricket on various podcasts for about 5 years now, I think. And the idea, from the moment Mickey Arthur pulled out his calipers, the fact that we've been having a kind of ongoing debate in Sri Lankan cricket about whether fitness is important or not is absolutely nuts. Clearly, if you are fit, you will put in performances more consistently than you are not fit. Of course, the role that we ask people like Bhanuka to play, it is possible that they get out after scoring 12 runs off 8 balls. And that's fine too, because it's the kind of finisher role. But you need to pick players who are putting themselves in the best position, or who are turning up to matches in the best position to score runs. Another question that Deekshana Praveen wrote is also, how do you win in India? It's probably going to be a lot flatter wickets than SL, right? So my interesting kind of thought when I saw this question, Esty and Dom, was actually I look at this World Cup and the teams turning up to it, and there's like maybe 3 teams I think are could potentially be a handful for Sri Lanka and are, you know, talent-wise at least slightly further ahead of us than we are. And the rest I kind of feel in South Asian conditions we should kind of compete with. Those 3 for me are Australia, India and South Africa. And I think at the moment, the rest are kind of in and about a place where we should be, kind of feel like we've got nothing, you know, should feel confident going in against. And actually, in India, the one team that we need to fear above all else should be India, right? Because they've got so much talent, and obviously it's home conditions and all of that. I'm not that worried about the wickets in India from a Sri Lanka perspective. I don't know what you guys think about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is scoring, right? I think that's the par in those wickets is 220 and 230 plus. We saw that in the IPL. I think this comes back to something you were pointing out earlier, Mark, where we're talking about the finisher. I actually think the finisher isn't really as big of a deal as it used to be anymore. I think you just need everyone, all, you know, top 7 to go hard from the start, unless the pitch demands it to sort of be played slowly. So I think it's important, we're talking about role clarity, important for everyone to have their idea, have their role, know which bowlers to target, know how to play, know how to be aggressive, know how to be attacking. So for me, it's got to be an all hands on deck situation where everyone's looking to score at 150 plus and not kind of just tick around at 110, 120, but everyone's got to be ready to go. And we've got to learn to value those 30s off of 15s or the 40s off of 22s, because that advances the game and gets it going.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting through a few more of these questions. Day one cricket, which I know is Turan has asked, what's Chandimal's role in this squad? Still have a lot of baton talent. Is there a role for him? I've got two kind of theories on this. One, which we talked about earlier, is that he's there as a backup wicketkeeper. He has also been quite good in T20 cricket recently. My other theory is that in the template, when they go and like for the squad announcements, for the press releases, Dinesh Chandimal's name's actually written in there, and quite often people forget to delete it. Akhil Dhananjaya is the other name that's often in there as well, and that again, that those 2 names, sometimes they stick them in there, sometimes they delete them, sometimes they don't. But it could be, this is Sri Lanka cricket, right? So it could just be a formatting issue. Kasun Kavinda has said, if Avishka settles at number 4, our top 5 is set. We just need to finalise number 6 and 7. I'd put Dasan as a 6 and an all-rounder, a specialist bowler at 7. So I think it's possible the 6 and 7 could end up being Dasan and Dineth Walalage. I don't know what what you two think about that. I'm not sure about Avishka, whether he will ever be a player that settles international cricket. I feel gutted saying that. I mean, we all remember his century against the West Indies in the 2019 World Cup, but he's had a lot of opportunity and he's not capitalised on it yet. And we're talking about 6 or 7 years of opportunity at this point, right, Estelle?
Yeah, and what's interesting to me is I feel like his format is ODI cricket, and he's not been picked there, which is interesting. Like I said, he has shown his best kind of ability in ODI cricket, right? So I don't understand what the reasoning is to then leave him out of that squad. I mean, form notwithstanding, I would pick him over Nishan Madushka, right, any day, because I think his ceiling is higher. Um, so that's an interesting thing to me. I don't know, as you said, Mark, right? Like, opportunities have been given, and you really haven't seen consistent enough performances to want to kind of persist with someone like him. Um, because the thing is, like, if you look around the world of cricket, right, talent is everywhere, potential is everywhere. It's what you do with that talent and potential that really counts at the end of the day, right? You could be one of the least talented players in the world, but if you're making runs and fulfilling the role that's been given to you by your side, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter whether you come in with you know the most beautiful shots, or experts who have spoken about you and your ability. It doesn't matter as long as you put the runs on the board. That's what it is at the end, right? Like, you look back at some of Sri Lanka's greats, like you look back at someone like Dimut Karunaratne. He probably wasn't being talked about as one of the great openers to come from Sri Lanka, right, when he was 19, 20 years old. But he ended up with that because he was able to actually fulfill a role for the team. So with Avishka, I mean, I understand the temptation to give him opportunities, but at some point, there has to be a consistent return, right? Like what we've seen from a Pathum Nisanka or Kusal Mendes.
Yeah.
I think I was going to say to 100% agree with Estelle. I think the tempting thing is that whenever he plays in these T20 leagues, he always has these massive performances, and we're like, see, he can do it. So if he can get his head right, he'll be a great player. I wonder if that specialist bowler all-rounder at 7, if that's kind of 6-7 they want to go, or maybe 6-7-8 they want to go some combination of Hasaranga, Chamika, Dasan, depending on who's bowling in the situation.
Let's wait and see on who ends up batting where there. It's interesting. Pusson has said SL selectors and management has no policy, and whoever performs, they will fill the team with them without any role clarity. Do you know what, right? I actually, and I'm not one to defend SLC. Why are you two laughing? Because I'm not always defending them. Look, I just accuse him of having a template with Dinesh Chandimal and Killer Dhananjay's name stuck on it, and that's how they end up being selected, right? I think, though, this comment is slightly unfair. I do think they have an idea of how they want to go about winning cricket matches. I also think that actually, if you look at the trajectory of some of our more established players now, so you look at Pathum Nisanka, Asalanka, Deekshana, Hasaranga, Kusal Mendes, you can put into that as well. That they also have ideas of how to develop players, not just to the point of getting to international cricket, but how to get better once they've debuted and established at that level as well. So I think it might be slightly unfair, Pusson. But look, if you've got any evidence to the contrary, then maybe I am wrong, and I will happily put my hand up and say that I'm wrong. I do wonder, though, Dom, if what SL is trying to do at the moment is, instead of when we talk about the grand SL teams of the past, of 96 all the way to 2015, and at that point it always felt like we were slightly ahead of the curve tactically, or doing something innovative that no one else is doing. And I wonder if we're falling a bit behind in that, and actually we're now playing catch up. I don't know how you two feel about that.
I 100% agree with that. I think that that's right, is that we are trying to play catch up or trying to create past magic rather than trying to say, here are the resources we have, here's how we can put them together in the best way to actually win matches.
Interesting. Right, some more of the comments. Zaid has asked, said, we need a left arm quick. Dilshan Madishank is our Mitchell Stark. I think we're all agreed on that, right? If we can get him fit and firing for the World Cup, then, I mean, if I was Australia, if you knew Dilshan Madishank is turning up, then maybe just don't waste the plane fare. Pat Cummins, we know you love the planet, we know you love the environment, we love the planet and the environment too. Stay home. Do not board that flight, mate. There's no point coming. Dilshan Madishank is raring to go. Zaid also said players like Kusal Mendes, Hasaranga Shanaka have to stand up this World Cup. They have enough experience if they play to their potential. We will bring the trophy home. This is the kind of enthusiasm I love to see on the Murali End, Estelle. This is it. I agree. I think, like, you look at those three players in particular. I know Shanaka's slightly older than the other two, but they've been around the block now, right? This is Hasaranga's third World Cup, third World Cup, third T20 World Cup, fourth in total, right?
Yeah.
I think we're ready. Like we've got the experience. There may be there's a Kusal Mendes is I think 30 now, right?
Yeah.
So he's kind of approaching the prime of his cricketing career.
Is he only 30?
Yeah.
Oh man,
it's incredible, isn't it? There's another kind of batch underneath that who are in their late 20s. But yeah, we're approaching a period now where these players should be, they should consider themselves in their prime, right? So we've got a good batch for them. It's a home World Cup as well. Estelle, who do and I've said if Dilshan Madishanka's coming, then the Australians might as well not turn up. Who else do you think shouldn't bother turning up?
Maybe all the other countries.
Yeah. What's the point? It's just a waste, right? We could set up a nice little ceremony. We'll do it in our Medabad if they want. Jay Shah, Narendra Modi standing there, handed the trophy over to Sanath Jayasuriya, Charatha Sri Lanka, AKD, all on the platform. Be lovely. Some nice clapping, some garlands. Let's go. Let's do it. We'll save us a lot of heartache and agony in those moments. There's always a moment when you think we're going to lose it. Like, what do you say, Dom? Are you on board with this plan as well?
I'm on board with it. But to get to Zaid's comment, I think that's right. We've been talking about the potential of this team since 2021. It's time for them to step up and grab the mantle and say, this is our tournament to win, and show that this talent we show all the time throughout the years that we can look at, we can talk highly about, let's actually do something about it. And that's what I think the players that Zaid has highlighted, totally spot on. And I think if this team plays to their potential, they can do some damage. Whether they'll bring the trophy home or not, I don't know. India in T20 cricket is a monster, but they can do damage if they play to their potential.
Absolutely. Right, a couple more comments before we wrap this up today. Dineth, he's apologised for driving the stream late. Don't worry, Dineth. You can always catch up. You can leave your comments later on. We always come back and comment as well. And you can also listen in the podcast as well if you missed any of it. He said, happy that Dustin is back in the side. Look, on a personal level, I'm happy Dustin Shanaka's back in the side as well. I just hope he justifies the selection and scores runs. That's all I care about at this point, right? You've got one cap or if you've got 30, it doesn't matter. As long as you've done something with it is the most important thing, right? There's a question about Patharana's form. I think we'll end up talking about that during the series, so I won't get onto that today. I will just leave it with one more comment from Hello Dilshan's. That Yorker to Rohit Sharma in 2023 is why he should be in the team. Look, that's what I was saying, that Australia might as well not turn up, right? Imagine he just fires in five of those in his first 2 overs. Australia 5 down for like 2 or 3 runs, it's going to be glorious, isn't it? There's another comment coming in that's nice about me, not so nice about Estelle. If you're going to be a bigot, don't come on the stream and leave your comments. Should we wrap it up there, guys? I'm excited. It's the road to the World Cup now, right? We've got one more ODI game before the T20 series kicks off. The ODI game is tomorrow. At least me and Dom should be on the stream to react to it soon after the end of play, which I imagine will be probably about the same time. Tomorrow, maybe slightly earlier, depending on how quickly Sri Lanka can get Bangladesh out. And hopefully we'll have something to celebrate, and then it's party all the way till the final in Ahmedabad. Thanks a lot for all the comments. We'll be back tomorrow. See you all later. Bye.